All right, welcome to the weekly prep video for the week of July 21st to the 25th. In this video, we'll be doing a recap of all the action of last week, including taking a look at the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, each one of them, and then end the video with some long and short setups going into next week that I'll be watching. Before we get started, I want to shout out the platform that I use for all of my trading research, charting, basically everything trading. DeepView is running a promotion where you could try the platform out completely risk-free. Don't even need to put your credit card information in. So there's a link in the comment section to give it a try yourself. If you do give it a shot, below that initial link is all the links to my watch list, my screeners, data, data panel, and column sets. So you could use the platform exactly how I do. All right, let's jump into it with the indexes first. QQQ end of the week up another 1.3%. Basically just sideways action on Friday. Opened a little higher, closed basically flat, minus 0.1%. Still above the 5-day EMA and the 10-day moving average. We had that nice shakeout on Wednesday that undercut the 10-day when there was rumor that Trump was going to fire Powell. That was just a shakeout, strong action from there, and then a little resting action on Friday. The S&P 500 up 0.6% last week, very similar structure. Shake out of the 10-day and support gap on Wednesday, follow through on Thursday, and then just chop on Friday down 0.06%. The growth stocks of the Russell 2000, that's the ticker IWO, a little bit weaker on Friday. We had a gap up. Basically, everyone was excited that the small caps were starting to outperform. We had a gap up, opened on the high, closed on the low, still above the 5-day moving average, and we did that on lighter volume. But that's a candle that it just gives you a second to pause. Overall, the structure is still great. We had that shakeout of the 20-day moving average and support gap on Wednesday. So this could just be some selling after that big shakeout before another move higher. Next, we have ARKK. This is something that I use to kind of give me a better sense of whether growth stocks in the market are going to be working and swing trading should be profitable. And when it's above the 20-day EMA, it usually is a good environment to trade. And we've been in a very good environment for a very long time right now. Another gap up on Friday, closed slightly lower in the range. We saw some growth stocks pull back that we'll get to with the leaders list. But ended the day up 1.7%, ended the week up 7.3%. Kathy is on a tear lately. And finally, BTC for Bitcoin, just basically trading sideways. We had that initial breakout from the 110 range, then just pulling back to the 5-day EMA, chopping sideways there, not doing anything wrong after the breakout. Exactly the type of action that you want to see. Before we get to the liquid leaders, I know I touched on this on Thursday, but we did get new NAAIM numbers. This is the Active Investors Exposure Index, so 83% basically positioning long. And at 83%, we actually dropped from 86 and dropped from 99 while we continue to make new highs in the market, which is a really great sign. It just means that there's still money on the sidelines. And if we continue to see quality setups break out, we could still trade those to the long side. And really, I don't get cautious until this is over 95%. We got to 99 with some leaders pulling back, and we had two distribution days within that week, but we basically just chopped sideways, got better construction of the pattern, and then rallied higher while exposure is dropping. This is a great recipe for like a blow off top move in growth names, some real parabolic moves, which we're already starting to see, which is really fun. But when the party does end, you get very, very quick reversals after that parabolic move. So just be careful that you're honoring your stops, you're moving your stops up with price action. But until we get to that overbought number, 95 or above, I still feel perfectly fine playing some trades to the long side. So let's take a look at the leaders. We did see some distribution action on Friday that I want to cover, but we'll just sort this by price percent change last week and go over it. RKLB, monster stock, monster price action, up 31% last week. Um, Basically, just 5 days up straight. We had a quick shakeout on Friday to the 5-day EMA and the support gap, which held, and then we rallied and closed well. basically flat on Friday, but great action out of a quick pullback. And overall, you could see just a monster stock. The last couple of years, this has rallied from $3 up to 51. Now it's getting a little extended. I wouldn't be like starting a position up here, maybe on a pullback to the 5 day, but even that's a little extended for me. RBLX up 17.7% last week. We also saw acceleration in that move, which is giving me a little bit of a reason to be cautious here. It's again, risk on market, but we're starting to see all these parabolic moves happen. They're great to play, but at some point, those parabolic moves snap and then we get some sharp pullbacks. RBLX up another 1.8% on Friday. Good volume, closing at highs. You just see that like the rate of change is increasing towards the end of this move. So little reason to be cautious. Robinhood up 4% on Friday, up 11.6% overall. Got ahead of itself a little bit on Friday. We gapped up, rallied. I think it was up like 7% at one point. And then we sold off, bounced at the end of the day, and then basically closed with a doji here on some bigger volume. Maybe this is an extension. I wouldn't count it as that unless we see follow through to the downside. I still think this could have like a 1 or 2 day like gap and go, really get extended, and then have that pullback. Coinbase up 2.2%, very similar action to Robinhood, where it gapped up. I want to say this was up like 10%. Actually, let's measure that. So at one point it was up 8.25%, so a little bit less than I thought. But then had that sharp pullback, about to the 5 day, bounced and closed well, up 8.45% last week. FUTU, this is one of the leading stocks in the China theme that I'm focused on. This and TME are the two that I'm really trying to build positions in, and I do have positions in. Up 7% on Friday, opened on the low, closed kind of middle part of the range. It was really cooking in the morning, but with some growth stocks pulling back, it seems like this was a little extended in the short term and pulled back, but still finished the day up 7%. GEV up 6.6% last week, up 0.8%, just inside candle above the 5 day moving average, above the support gap. Not doing anything wrong. Great action overall. Nvidia chopped sideways on Friday, up 4.5% on the week, still above the 5 day, the 10 day, and that support gap. Royal Caribbean, another slight gap up, closed up 0.47%, up 3.45 for the week. And then SoFi, kind of similar with Robinhood and Coinbase because it has that crypto kind of ish theme to it, fintech theme to it. Got going, reversed, did close red down 1.2%, but bounced at the 5 day moving average in the support gap. Until we close under that, I still think that we're kind of in a rally phase that um, we don't want to try to get short too early on a liquid leader. I would honestly like not short any of the liquid leaders unless we have like a pure blow off top move in like Hood or RKLB. And I don't think we're there just yet. Next, we'll take a look at the industry ETFs. We'll go through each of these like one by one, but spend a little bit more time on what I think the important ones are. So, sorting this by price percent change last week, NLR nuclear theme on fire last week, up 8.2%. Great action overall. We had a huge move from 64 to 112, then pulled back into the 20-day EMA, stalled there for just a couple days, but held the support gap, and then ripped back through the 20-day. And from there, it was just off to the races, all-time highs. Great action underneath the hood as well with SMR, Oklo, LEU. Just one of the leading teams in the market right now. KWEB, this was the Chinese theme that I've been talking about for weeks and weeks as we really consolidated here. On a weekly chart, you can see we've been basing for about 3.5 years, but price action really got tight the last 10 weeks. And all the moving averages are starting to curl under that price action. And then on the daily chart, we finally got good news to really ignite this move with NVIDIA being able to sell their chips to China. Had that big move on, was that Tuesday, Monday? Tuesday. Kind of an inside candle to the 5 day moving average on Wednesday, then strong action on Thursday and Friday. Did close relatively weak, but up another 1.3%. I still think that this is a theme that is going to be one to focus on in the second half of this year. Block, that's the blockchain ETF, new all-time highs. Little choppy action with Coinbase, SoFi, Robinhood on Friday. Still above the 5-day moving average. Not doing anything wrong. This is just a clean uptrend. ITA has been a leading theme in the market. That's the defense and aerospace. Just basically a frozen rope over the 5-day EMA. Acting great. New highs on Friday. Closed flat. Up, or I guess closed up 1.5. Sorry, 0.15%. Excuse me. IGV, this is a great sign for the market. Last week, we were a little concerned because we lost the 5 and 10 day on the 10th. And then on the 11th, we gapped down and followed through to the downside below the 20-day moving average. And when software does that, that gives you a reason to pause after a nice big rally. But instead of continuing to follow through to the downside and test the 50-day, we got an unfilled gap up on Monday, tight price action Tuesday. Wednesday, we got that market shakeout. And then we followed through to the upside, right back at all-time highs. It's awesome to see software acting right. XME all-time highs, or at least 52-week highs. Big bar on Thursday, tight action at highs on Friday, up 2.8% last week. Cybersecurity, I think this is the next theme that if we're going to continue this rally, this is a group to focus on for rotation. Similar to software, we had ugly days Thursday, Friday last week, pulled into the 50-day moving average. And this is the first time it's pulled into the 50-day after the breakout. And this is kind of like a breakout retest of the previous highs. So the fact that that got supported last week and then we rallied up into the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average is great action overall. A day or two pulling back, just putting in a higher low would be great, but we already had a little higher low to the 50-day on the 16th. So this is a group that, again, if the market's going to continue higher, I think this China and solar, which we'll get to in a second, will get the next rotation. IYZ is the telecommunications ETF at new highs. Great, like not too much to say, just quick shakeout of the 20-day. Great action on Thursday, then tight on Friday. TEJ is the leisure and entertainment ETF, basically at highs over the 5-day moving average. You got the moving averages in the right order and in a clean uptrend. Awesome overall. FDN, this is the internet ETF over the key moving averages. Good shakeout of the 20-day EMA and support gap on Wednesday. Great action Thursday and Friday. Robo, this is another theme that is very hot with speculative names, with robotics obviously starting to heat up. Breaking out of this multi-year base, very similar to China. Now, I don't know if we're just like running right up to highs here and then we're going to consolidate for a couple weeks, or this is the breakout attempt. It's a little bit hard to trade these when it comes like right off the lows and it doesn't give you much of a pullback, but that's just a sign of the market that we're in, which is risk on and really accelerating at this point. At some point, we will get a pullback. Semiconductors, SMH, great action overall. Had new highs on Friday, closed slightly red, down 0.5%, but bounced at the 5-day moving average and the support gap. Financials, awesome, awesome action. Was actually kind of concerned about this group last week when we lost the 20-day moving average with a gap down. That's usually not a great sign, but then we had that big shakeout on Wednesday with the Powell news, opened on the low with a little gap down under the 20-day. At this point on Thursday, when we gap down back under the 20-day, Bears could have taken control and really pushed this lower, but they didn't have the power. Bulls came in, supported the price action, got through the 20-day, got through the 5, the 10, closed right near highs into this resistance gap. And then Friday, we just traded sideways. Great action overall. XLY, this is discretionary ETF, basically at highs after that shakeout to the 20-day. XLP is consumer staples. Continues to be a really wiki base, a lot of kind of random action here. Not really a focus of mine, but whichever way this breaks, we'll get some feedback on the market. TAN, the solar ETF, very similar to the China theme. This is a theme that I've been pounding the table on. I think we have bottomed. We stocks and themes bottom on bad news when solar got the news that their tax credits weren't going to be renewed. We had this big gap down, end of the day down 9.3%. But then instead of falling through to the downside, we put in a higher low into that support gap, rallied right back into new 52-week highs, or at least this year's high, maybe not 52 week. And then since then, has done nothing wrong. Just traded sideways, consolidating after that big move from 30 to 39, basically a 30% move, holding the 10-day moving average. We do have one gap down from the 10th to the 11th, which is a little like that's one warning sign. But overall, I think this is a great looking structure. Again, if the market rally continues, here's the next setup that should, or the next theme that should get some money rotated in. XRT, retail ETF, sake of the 20-day, tight price action overall, not doing anything wrong there. XBI, biotech ETF, continues to be tricky. 5 attempts at this resistance gap and the 200-day EMA or 200-day simple moving average. But we continue to have kind of these kill bars where we attempt to rally through and then just reverse and close on the low. So until we break this pattern, I'm not really interested in this theme. If we do break above the 20-day and above these previous highs, then I would get very interested. So you could set an alert around that area and maybe take that breakout with um, XBI. XLB off the 200-day moving average into the 5 and the 10-day, still in an uptrend. IYT transportation ETF pulled back to the 20-day, a little bit weaker overall. Uber's been a little bit weaker. Got it that kicked off the leaders list this week. Gold miners not doing anything too wrong. Right at the 50-day moving average. We did have a gap down on Thursday that we couldn't close above on Friday with a little gap up, tested the 20-day, and then close near low of days. Just kind of consolidating at the 50-day moving average. Really, I once we get over like today's highs and those key moving averages, I would get interested in the group again. But until then, not really a focus. XLV down another 2.4% this week, continues to be the weakest theme in the market. This is healthcare, and healthcare biotech kind of go hand in hand, but this is extremely weak. Made new lows after the market put in their lows, sign of relative weakness. Continues to get sold off at this resistance gap, has other gap downs from that point, and we're closing under all the key moving averages. Not a good look for the theme. XOP, oil and gas exploration, attempted to get over the 200-day, closed back at the 20-day. This is kind of just stop and slop to me. Same with XLE, back under the 20-day EMA. Just a lot of volatility without clean price action, so not a theme that I want to focus on. And then ITB has been weak as well. Not like great action. A gap down last week, lost the 5, the 10, the 20-day all in one day on the 15th, and now we're kind of just wedging up into the key moving averages here. We basically just need lower rates for home builders to take off again. So now we'll jump into the long setups, and like I said, like we're in an extended market move at this point. A lot of these trades that I would put on, I would try to get in with tighter stops and play for the momentum move right away. I'm not sitting around and hoping that a trade comes back and starts working. If I'm going to take anything long at this point, it's got to work right away. So PGY is the first one, up 35% this week. Awesome, awesome action on the 17th, up 25%. And then we followed that up with another gap up and strong close on volume. We uppercut this resistance gap, which makes me think we might pull back into the HVC, into the gap zone, and into that $30 round number area. So a pullback undercut of that and then reclaiming that zone is the buy spot, and then using like a 1 or 2% stop there. But this stock, really good move from 8 to 30. Maybe this is like the last part of the acceleration phase, but we still had great action on Friday. So I'll be watching that HVC level, high volume close. We have two solar stocks, SEDG. This has been on the watch list basically all week. We had an ugly bar on Wednesday, inside candle on Thursday, then gap up and rally on Friday. Exactly the type of action that you want to see. Um, Already has doubled off the low, and a name that can trend very, very well if we zoom out when it enters a either stage 4 or stage 2 trend, it does tend to trend very well. So looking for a gap and go break through today's high as an entry point, or if we have like a weak Monday in the market, shake out of the 10-day and this gap zone at 25 17 ish area. That's a spot that I could risk then versus the 20-day EMA. Let's just go to the other solar. That's NXT. I do have a position in this. Bought it on Thursday on the undercut and rally of the support gap below the 20-day moving average. Could have done it on Friday as well. Just tight action overall. My stop here is the low, right at like 59.30. This is a solar ETF, or sorry, solar IPO that is already made new highs. First time pulling back to the 20-day moving average and a support gap zone after making new highs is my bread and butter setup. So I have to try this, especially because personally I think that the solar theme is starting to heat up. So getting a leading stock in a theme that's getting rotation at a key risk reward level, that's usually when I size up. Next, we'll jump to Reddit. This is kind of a secondary name for me. It's had relative weakness this entire uptrend, even though it's rallied from 80 to 160. So 100% off the lows. It's hard to say it's relatively weak, but we do have evidence of some relative weakness, a gap down, resistance gap, lost the 5 and the 10-day moving averages. But here's another kind of key spot that we're at. First time testing the 20-day moving average after an extended move. Good shakeouts of the support gap below the 20-day. Now we're just looking for another kind of shake of that area at 140, 141, and then place a stop at the previous low here for nice tight risk. Meta is a stock that I'll be watching, and kind of mega caps in general. Apple, Amazon, Meta, Tesla got going on Friday. So if we get that exposure from NAAIM all the way up to 100%, mega caps could be like another theme to focus on. Meta, great move off the low from 480 to 750, about a 50% move. Now we're just putting in a handle from this cup. Good shakeout of the 20-day. A lot of people use the 20-day or 21-day as their line in the sand. So they've been shaken out of the name. But if we draw the support gaps like I do, at the end of the day, they're protecting this area right at $700. And now we have really tight price action, or really tight like highs of day the last 2 days. So you can just buy on strength through 705. Stop would be the low from Friday. IONQ, this is a theme that's working really well right now. I'm in our GTI already. This is the quantum like theme. Big base, cup and handle, or VCP, whatever you want to call it. We're starting to see volatility contract, getting right near the high of the breakout point at this resistance gap. I think a gap and go through today's high could be viable, and we want to play that forward momentum move like an RGTI, which you could see base, and then we gapped and then immediately took off, had a 30% day, followed it up with another 3.5%, and then strong action on Friday. So I think RGTI is the leader of the theme. I think IONQ is right there with it, and it has a beautiful, beautiful consolidation chart here. Net is next. No like super clean area, just into new highs would be viable, but great relative strength. And this is a stock that I didn't have on my watch list for some reason for a while. Has already doubled off the lows and is in a theme that went through kind of a phase of relative weakness, but unlike the rest of the theme, like we'll see with CrowdStrike, it's already back at highs, like right at highs. So great relative strength after that couple kill bars here. And now we're just looking for a break into new highs or like a day or two tightening up and then a move into new highs. RBRK, another software name that was basically the first to top, rallied from 48 to 100, so a double off the lows. And then we've had this bout of relative weakness, but it's not really doing anything too wrong. We've got three gap downs, tried to get through that area. So whenever a setup has like a gap down like this or multiple gap downs, I tend to try to buy on weakness. There's not a clean area to buy on weakness just yet, but I'm hoping we get like a tight day or a shakeout day under Friday's low as a potential entry, um, or just like this to shape it up towards the end of the week, and then we can really focus on that. CrowdStrike was a previous leader, lost the 20-day EMA all in one bar, and then came to the 50-day moving average. First test of the 50-day after making new highs is usually a good risk reward spot. We've been trading sideways since, so just through today's high could be viable. Stop would be the 50-day moving average there. We already talked NXT. So finally, we have IREN. This is a crypto themed stock, which has made a monster move off the low from 5 to 17. And the only real concerning day at this point was the 11th, where we reversed. We closed under the 5-day moving average. Pretty ugly bar, down 4.7%. But the next day, we followed it up with an unfilled gap up, rally, saw a shakeout of that zone and held. So buying support has been proven in this area. And now we're right at highs again. So a couple different ways to play this. If we have a pullback in the market Monday to Wednesday, then this support gap and the 20-day moving average would probably align close-ish. And then that would be buyable there versus whatever a 3 or 4% stop would be. Or if we get a slight gap up, a move through the highs as a pure momentum play would be the other spot to try it. Next, we got some short setups. A lot of these I've covered in length before, so going to go quickly through them. Par has run from 55 up to 192. If we zoom out on the chart, we can see on the left side, that's where all the turbulence is. A lot of people are probably stuck at these higher prices. And this is the first chance that they have to get out for break even or for like a small loss. We had some weakness on Friday, but on very light volume. I still think this could gap up in rally, and you could trade this as like a long setup for like a really parabolic move, completely fine. But if we see any follow through to the downside, my guess is we've wedged up enough. We've made a big enough move. We've got that resistance on the left side. It's time to pull back to at least like the 20-day. QS, this has earnings on Wednesday after the close, and usually, when you get this extended and you have like 3 or 4 days going into earnings, you tend to have like a pullback. Doesn't mean it has to happen. Perfect scenario would be if we gapped up and had another big bar and uppercut this resistance gap at 16.5. Then we found an intraday loss of the VWAP as a potential short spot versus the high of the day. That would be my play. If we just continue to rip into earnings and then we get an earnings gap up, that would be a spot where I would try to like really size a short for a reversal because it's an awesome stock. It's made great moves, had highest volume ever back to back days. And we had this on our long watch list on this breakout on 715. Now we're up 100% from that point, and we're getting extended going into earnings. Probably, I'm looking for a reversal in this name. I shouldn't say probably a reversal, but Joby, kind of similar action. Sideways on Friday after some volatility. But another name that's gone from 5 up to 17, another like gap up, uppercut the high, and then a loss of Friday's high is a potential entry. A loss of the VWAP is the other entry versus whatever the high of the day is. UPXI, this stock gapped down from 10 down to 250 or so. Since then has had a really big rally right back up into the 50-day moving average, but we're starting to see some weakness pile up here. We gapped up on Thursday, closed weaker in the range after a big shakeout. Friday, we uppercut that previous high. We uppercut the 50-day moving average, then closed weak in this range. So I'm just looking for a gap down to short versus the high, or not the high from Friday, excuse me, whatever the opening range break would be. So that's UPXI. BMNR, a name that I went back and studied this weekend. Really great short opportunities and long opportunities after like day one, day four, long opportunities. But the fact that this churned at such a crazy price, jumping from $3 up to 160, a lot of people got trapped in this area. And when we did have the flush day down 40%, that just keeps the supply, overhead supply there and selling pressure down. And you'll see that because we followed through to the downside the next day with another 30% down day, then 11%. Then we finally started flattening out after that big move down. But you can see all of these bars are red candles, meaning we opened higher, we closed lower. There's distribution going on because we've had so much volume up at the top here, creating that selling pressure. This is also a resistance gap. I should change that. So with this, ideally we have like a uppercut of the 10-day moving average in the last couple of days highs, and then a reversal would be short versus the high on Wednesday. TRRR, this was actually on the long watch list as like a speculative name that if we saw a break to the upside, we could have more evidence that the party is still rocking. Unfortunately, we got evidence that maybe we're lightening up a little bit. We followed through to the downside, lost the 50-day moving average, closed into that support gap right around 19. This is one I'm just looking for a morning rally and then a loss of VWAP to short versus whatever the high of the day is. And it's made a big move, but it's gone through some phases of relative weakness. And if we are extended and actually start to pull back, this is a name that we already have evidence that sellers have been coming in and getting out of this stock. NEGG, this was a great short for me on Friday. We covered it in the video on Thursday, and it played out perfectly. And they don't always do that, but when they do, it does feel nice. This name rallied from $3 up to $50, so obviously extended. We had a unfilled gap down on the 14th. That was a short spot. We followed through to the downside with another gap down another 19% on the 15th. And then the rest of the week, we just kind of chopped and rallied into the resistance gap. We'll go to like a 5-minute chart on this. We uppercut the resistance gap, and then when we came back through the top of the zone, that was the short spot versus the high of the day. And from that point, it basically melted. We got a lower high rally, then kind of wedge, and by the end of the day, they were just selling it completely off. So really great move from that point. It was, let's see, about 17% already on that move. Now we're just looking for like another like weak morning rally to the lower part of the resistance gap, right around 3150 as a potential add spot to the short. DFDV, this is a name I still think it could have another leg higher, but we are getting some evidence that this isn't as strong as some of the other crypto related names. Down 12% on Thursday, down 9% on Friday, back through the 5 and the 10-day moving averages. If we've got a lower high rally in the first part of this week, then the second part of the week we can spend trying to short versus that lower high. SBET, this has been on the short watch list for a couple days. Huge volume, back-to-back highest volume ever, right at the resistance gap. That's a sign of churning, of people that bought right, getting out after a 200% rally. Great for them. Awesome trade right there. But once you get extended into a resistance gap and you see heavy volume come in, it's usually when the party is over. And we got that on Friday, down 20%. Similar, just looking for a weak morning rally and then a loss of VWAP to short that. And finally, PTHL. This is hopefully one of those Chinese scams like OST that had a 93% down day and then followed through to the downside. PCLA last week was a really good short for me. It dropped from 340 down to like 40 cents. And you basically just have all these wash sales up, completely manipulated. And then when they take off, there's just no market for the stock and it completely falls apart. So we see similar structure with PTHL. I started shorting it on Wednesday. I'm slightly underwater on the position, but I'm still like, I'm only getting a couple shares at a time. I have not been able to get a big position on this yet, but what I'm looking for, which you'll see with OST or PCLA if you study those, morning volatility, like a morning spike and then loss, very tight price action, and then you lose the VWAP. Once you get that second burst of volatility after like the initial move higher, that's when you start to see sellers pour in, and hopefully this can just drop 80% like the others uh, did last week. So that's going to be the weekly prep video for July 21st to the 25th. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I do daily recaps Monday through Thursday and then a weekly review on Sunday. Make sure you're also giving DeepView a try with the link in the comment section, and make sure you download all of my watch list screeners, column sets, and what's the fourth one? Data panel. So you could use DeepView exactly how I do. You could try it out 1 month, completely risk-free. Don't even have to put your credit card information in. So jump on that opportunity. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy to help out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys on Monday.